A teenage boy found a real mermaid by the river. He brought her home with pure love, but his father had dark intentions. What happened next will shock you and break your heart. The small town of Riverside, Louisiana, was quiet that summer morning. Sunlight shimmered on the river's surface, and birds circled lazily above. 16-year-old Ethan Carter loved fishing. Every dawn, he carried his old rod and sat by the riverbank, hoping to catch dinner for himself and his father. That morning, however, fate had prepared something beyond his imagination. As Ethan reeled in his line, he heard a faint sound, like a soft cry mixed with a melody. His heart skipped. He leaned closer to the water, and what he saw nearly stopped his breath. There, tangled among the reeds, was a young mermaid. Her scales glistened like silver in the sunlight, her long dark hair floating across the water. She looked terrified, shivering, her big blue eyes filled with both fear and innocence. Ethan dropped his rod. "Oh my God," he whispered. "You're real." The mermaid struggled, gasping. She looked weak, as though she had been trapped for hours. Ethan's heart ached. Without hesitation, he waded into the water and lifted her gently into his arms. "Don't be afraid," he murmured. "I won't hurt you." Her skin was cold, her body trembling. She clung to him faintly, as though trusting this human boy with her fragile life. Ethan carried her home, his mind racing. He had no idea how he would explain this to his father, Robert Carter, a man known in town for his harshness. Still, Ethan's only thought was saving her. When Robert saw what Ethan had brought inside their small wooden house, his eyes widened, not with wonder, but with something darker. A smirk curled on his lips. "A mermaid," Robert said slowly. "Do you know what fortune this could bring us, boy?" Ethan frowned, shielding her. "She's not for money, Dad. She needs help. She's scared." But in Robert's eyes, greed, and something even more dangerous, had already awakened. The old wooden floor creaked under Robert's boots as he circled the mermaid like a predator eyeing its prey. Ethan gently laid her on a blanket in the corner of the small cabin. She blinked weakly, whispering words in a language he couldn't understand. "Dad, she's hurt," Ethan said firmly. "She needs rest, not whatever you're thinking." Robert chuckled, his rough hands rubbing together. "You fool. Do you realize what people would pay to see this? A living mermaid. Fishermen, scientists, hell, even the government. We'd never be poor again." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She's not some trophy. She's a person." The mermaid's eyes met Ethan's, soft but pleading. She seemed to understand more than she let on. She reached for his hand, clutching it like a lifeline. For a moment, Ethan felt a strange bond, like fate had chosen him to protect her, but Robert's eyes narrowed with something uglier than greed. There was hunger there. A dangerous curiosity. "Don't be naive, son," Robert hissed. "Creatures like her, they're meant to be used." Ethan stood in front of her, blocking his father's path. His heart pounded in his chest. "If you touch her, you'll have to go through me." Robert's smirk widened. "Careful, boy. Don't forget who raised you. Don't forget who owns this house." The tension was thick, like a storm about to break. The mermaid whimpered softly, her tail glistening in the lantern light. Ethan tightened his grip on her hand, promising silently that he wouldn't let harm come to her, but in the dark corners of Robert's mind, plans were already forming, plans that would soon shatter Ethan's world forever. That night, the storm outside grew wilder. Rain hammered against the old cabin walls, and thunder shook the roof like an angry warning from the heavens. Ethan stayed awake, sitting near the mermaid, watching her breathe softly as she lay curled on the blanket. Her tail shimmered faintly, glowing as if the sea itself was calling her back. Ethan whispered, "Don't worry. I won't let anyone hurt you." But behind him, Robert's shadow appeared in the doorway. His eyes were sharp, burning with greed and something darker. "You think you can keep her safe, boy? She's not yours. She's an opportunity, and opportunities don't wait forever." Ethan stood, fists clenched. "Dad, please. Just let her go. She belongs to the ocean." Robert laughed coldly. "Let her go? Do you have any idea how rare this is? Do you know how much power a creature like this carries? She could make us rich, or," his voice lowered, sinister, She could give pleasures no woman ever could. Ethan's stomach twisted in horror. Stop it. She's not an object. The mermaid's eyes opened, fear glistening within them as she sensed Robert's vile intentions. She tried to move, but her body was still weak. Ethan knelt quickly, holding her hand. Don't be scared. I'm here. Robert stepped closer, the lantern light stretching his figure across the floor. You can't protect her forever, son. Sooner or later, she'll be mine. Ethan's heart pounded like war drums. He knew tonight was only the beginning of a nightmare, one where he would have to fight his own father to save the innocent soul he had brought into their home. The rain outside grew heavier, thunder rolling across the sky like a warning. Inside the small wooden house, the mermaid sat trembling in the corner of the kitchen, her wet hair clinging to her pale face. Her wide eyes glistened with tears, filled with fear and confusion. The boy knelt beside her, whispering softly. Don't be afraid. You're safe here. I promise. He tried to shield her with his presence, but the weight of his father's gaze pressed against them both. This creature, the father muttered, his voice sharp and greedy, she is not ordinary. There is power in her existence. And power changes everything. The boy stood, desperate. Father, please. She's innocent. She doesn't deserve harm. But his father's expression hardened, consumed by greed and desire. The father stepped forward, motioning for the mermaid to come closer. She hesitated, shaking, then slowly moved a step. The boy quickly tried to block his father's path, but was shoved aside, falling against the wall. The atmosphere thickened with tension. The mermaid's chest rose and fell quickly, her eyes darting between father and son. She looked fragile, yet there was something untold in her silence. We will not waste this chance, the father said darkly. With her, our lives will change forever, whether you like it or not. The boy's voice broke with anger. This is wrong, father. Can't you see? She trusts us. But the father ignored him, each step bringing him closer to the helpless mermaid. The storm outside howled louder, rattling the fragile windows of the house. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the fear on the mermaid's face. She tried to back away, her hands trembling as she pressed against the cold wall. The father's shadow loomed over her, his breath heavy with greed. You don't understand, son, he growled. Creatures like her are not meant to live in secrecy. She can bring fortune, riches, power beyond our dreams. The boy, his heart pounding, pushed himself off the floor. Fortune means nothing if it destroys her. She is alive, father. She is not a tool for your desires. His voice cracked with both fear and defiance, tears welled up in the mermaid's eyes. She clutched the edge of her torn dress, silently pleading for mercy. Her beauty, fragile and unearthly, only fueled the father's obsession. With a sudden move, the father reached out to grab her arm. The mermaid flinched, letting out a soft, broken cry that pierced the boy's heart. He rushed forward, shoving his father back with all his strength. Enough, the boy shouted, his voice trembling but firm. If you touch her again, you'll have to go through me first. The father stared at him, shocked at the rebellion, then slowly broke into a twisted smile. You're just a child, he said coldly. And children don't know the cost of disobedience. The air inside the house grew heavy, almost suffocating, as father and son locked eyes, two forces clashing, with the terrified mermaid caught between them. The storm outside howled louder, rattling the fragile windows of the house. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the fear on the mermaid's face. She tried to back away, her hands trembling as she pressed against the cold wall. The father's shadow loomed over her, his breath heavy with greed. You don't understand, son, he growled. Creatures like her are not meant to live in secrecy. She can bring fortune, riches, power beyond our dreams. The boy, his heart pounding, pushed himself off the floor. Fortune means nothing if it destroys her. She is alive, father. She is not a tool for your desires. His voice cracked with both fear and defiance, tears welled up in the mermaid's eyes. She clutched the edge of her torn dress, silently pleading for mercy. Her beauty, fragile and unearthly, only fueled the father's obsession. With a sudden move, the father reached out to grab her arm. The mermaid flinched, letting out a soft, broken cry that pierced the boy's heart. He rushed forward, shoving his father back with all his strength. Enough, the boy shouted, his voice trembling but firm. "If you touch her again, you'll have to go through me first." The father stared at him, shocked at the rebellion, then slowly broke into a twisted smile. "You're just a child," he said coldly. "And children don't know the cost of disobedience." The air inside the house grew heavy, almost suffocating, as father and son locked eyes, two forces clashing, with the terrified mermaid caught between them. The storm outside seemed to echo the chaos inside. Thunder cracked like the sky itself was warning them. The mermaid's sobs filled the room, soft yet heartbreaking. As she curled into herself, desperate for safety, the father stepped closer, his eyes wild with greed. "Do you think you can protect her from me, boy?" His voice was sharp, cutting through the sound of the rain. The son's fists trembled, but he stood firm, planting himself between his father and the mermaid. "She is not yours to harm. She is not a prize. She is not a curse. She is someone." For a moment, silence stretched. The father's breath grew heavier, his anger boiling. Then, with sudden force, he raised his hand and struck the boy across the face. The crack of the slap echoed like another clap of thunder. The boy stumbled but didn't fall. His cheek burned, but his heart burned hotter. Slowly, he lifted his head, his eyes filled not with tears, but with defiance. "You taught me strength, father," he whispered. "But you never taught me cruelty. I will not let you break her." The mermaid, trembling, lifted her tearful eyes to him. For the first time, she saw someone willing to fight for her, even against blood ties. The father's face twisted with rage. "Then you've chosen your fate," he growled. His shadow loomed larger as he advanced, the storm outside roaring louder than ever, as if nature itself was preparing for the collision about to come. The storm raged louder, rattling the wooden walls of their small home. The candlelight flickered wildly, casting long, twisted shadows on the floor. The mermaid's sobs quieted as her wide, frightened eyes followed the clash between father and son. The father lunged forward, grabbing his son by the collar. His breath reeked of anger and desperation. "You think you can defy me? I am your blood. You will obey me." The son's hands shook as he tried to push back, his voice breaking yet filled with fire. "Blood doesn't give you the right to destroy lives. Not hers, not mine." With a violent shove, the father threw him against the wooden table, sending plates and cups crashing to the ground. The boy groaned, pain shooting through his body, but he forced himself up, his eyes locked on the mermaid. "Run," he whispered hoarsely to her. "Run before but the father cut him off with a roar. "She goes nowhere." He grabbed a heavy rope from the corner of the room, his intention clear, to bind the mermaid, to claim her as his possession. The mermaid's breath hitched, her tears streaming down her pale cheeks. She pressed herself into the corner, helpless yet shimmering with an otherworldly glow. The boy, bruised but unbroken, staggered to his feet again. His voice, weak but unyielding, cut through the storm. "If you touch her, you'll have to kill me first." The father froze for just a second, startled by the steel in his son's tone. The storm outside cracked with a lightning strike so close, it lit the room in blinding white. For the first time, the house itself felt like a battlefield where love, cruelty, and destiny were colliding. The lightning faded, leaving the room drenched in shadows once more. The father's grip on the rope tightened, his knuckles white, his eyes burning with greed. He took a slow step toward the trembling mermaid. "She's not yours," he hissed, his voice low and venomous. "She's a gift the river gave me, and I'll use her as I see fit." The son's chest heaved with rage and fear. "She's not a thing," he shouted. His voice cracked, but his defiance filled the room. "She's alive. She feels. She suffers. Don't you see that?" The father snarled, raising the rope high as though ready to strike. But before it could fall, the air shifted. A strange hum filled the room, soft at first, then rising like the deep song of the ocean. The mermaid's eyes, wet with tears, began to glow faintly, casting a bluish shimmer across the walls. Her lips parted, and a whisper escaped, like a melody carried by the waves. The storm outside seemed to pause, listening. The father froze, his arm trembling midair. For the first time, his expression faltered, not from guilt, not from mercy, but from fear. The boy's breath caught. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew, this wasn't just a frightened girl from the river. This was something far greater, far older, and far more powerful than either of them could comprehend. The mermaid's voice grew stronger, echoing like the call of the sea itself. The windows rattled, the candle blew out, and the room was bathed in the eerie, otherworldly glow of her sorrow and rage. The father stumbled back, clutching his chest as if the sound itself had struck him, and in that chilling moment, the boy realized, his father was no longer the one in control. The sound of her song grew louder, shaking the wooden beams of the small house. The boy covered his ears, but it wasn't pain he felt, it was awe, like the ocean itself had been poured into the room. The father screamed, stumbling backward as the glow around the mermaid flared brighter. The ropes that bound her wrists snapped like thin twigs, falling to the floor. Her tears shimmered, turning into droplets of light that floated upward, circling her like a halo. She rose slowly, her bare feet barely touching the ground. The kitchen, once so ordinary, now felt like the heart of the ocean itself. "You tried to break me," her voice echoed, layered with power. It wasn't just words, it was the sound of crashing waves, of endless tides. "But you cannot chain the sea." The father fell to his knees, clutching at the floorboards, his pride and hunger dissolving into terror. "No, no, please," the boy stood frozen, torn between fear of her and fear for her. His heart pounded as he whispered, "Please, don't hurt him." The mermaid's glowing eyes turned to the boy. For a moment, the fury in her gaze softened. She saw the innocence in him, the kindness that had first pulled her from the river, but when her eyes shifted back to the father, the glow hardened into steel. The storm outside roared again, the wind howling as if answering her call. The father screamed once more, his voice swallowed by the sound of crashing waves that no one else could hear, and then, with a blinding flash, the kitchen vanished into silence, leaving behind only the boy, the storm, and the echo of the sea. The silence was heavy, broken only by the crackle of the storm outside. The boy blinked, his eyes adjusting to the dim light that remained. His father lay collapsed on the floor, trembling, his face pale and drenched in sweat. The mermaid stood tall in the center of the room, her glow fading into a softer shimmer. Her power had broken the chains. The fear, the cruelty, but her eyes were still sharp as the ocean in its darkest hour. "You sought to own me," she said, her voice calmer now, though it carried the weight of thunder. "You sought to use me. But the sea cannot be owned. It cannot be broken." The father whimpered, unable to meet her gaze. His pride was gone, his cruelty exposed. He was nothing more than a coward before the storm. The boy stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Please, don't take him away. He's my father." For a long moment, the mermaid looked at him. The glow in her eyes softened, as if the storm within her heart had met the gentleness of his. She knelt down, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You saved me. And because of you, I will not destroy him. But he must live knowing the truth of what he tried to do." With a wave of her hand, the storm outside began to calm. The thunder rolled away, leaving only the soft patter of rain. The air in the room grew lighter, as though the sea itself had retreated. The mermaid turned toward the door. "Be kind, child," she whispered. "For kindness is the only power stronger than the sea." And with that, she walked out into the rain, her figure glowing one last time before vanishing back into the river from which she came. The boy stood in the doorway, tears mixing with the rain on his cheeks, watching the water ripple and shine. He knew he would never see her again, but he would never forget. The father, still on the floor, could only stare at the river, haunted by the mercy he had been shown, and so the story ended, not with chains or cruelty, but with freedom, and a warning: the sea gives life. B.